Hey guys, tonight we're uncorking a bottle of pure American absurdity. The story of how Coca-Cola, a drink that once boasted more cocaine than a Hollywood Hills after-party, became the comforting fizz at every family picnic, soda fountain, and dental appointment in the land of the free. That's right. While your grandparents were preaching temperance, they were probably sipping something that could pep up a corpse and polish your silverware at the same time. Before we go any further, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy this sort of late-night journey through history's weirdest kitchen cabinets. Drop a comment with where you're listening from. Now, let's set the mood. Dim those lights. Switch on a fan for that vintage 1920s speakeasy white noise. Slip into something more comfortable. Let's play a little mental trivia. Have you ever wondered what life would be like if your doctor prescribed you a nice cold glass of soda for your migraines and your existential dread? Or why the most American beverage on earth started as a pharmacist's side hustle, complete with a dash of narcotic spice? Do you ever lie awake pondering if you could have survived the Prohibition era, where beer was illegal, but Coca-Cola was still there to help you do your taxes, invent jazz, and maybe fight Godzilla? Was soda really safer than water? Did people honestly buy Coca-Cola for their children or their horses? Would you have thrived as a 1920s teetotaler? Or just ended up the proud owner of the world's most overstimulated mustache? Congratulations! You've just woken up at 1922. Prohibition is in full swing. Alcohol is banned. Jazz is blaring. And the most exciting thing at the bar is the mysterious brown syrup bubbling behind the counter. Welcome to America, where everyone's dry, but nobody's calm. Step into a sticky, gas-lit pharmacy in 1886 Atlanta, where Dr. John Stith, Pemberton, part-time pharmacist, full-time wounded Civil War vet, decides to invent a brain tonic with enough sugar to stun a horse and enough cocaine to keep your grandma awake for 3 days. You're here for a headache cure, but what you get is history's most legendary sugar rush. Let's set the scene. The air is thick with the smell of turpentine, musty liniment, and hope. Every shelf behind the marble counter is packed with glass bottles labeled with names like soothing elixir, nerve syrup, and instant rejuvenator. Most of these could double as floor cleaner or, in a pinch, embalming fluid. You walk in because your head hurts, your nerves are shot, and the only thing stronger than your pain is your suspicion that modern medicine is just people making it up as they go. Dr. Pemberton, sporting a moustache that's 1/3 Southern charm and 2/3 anxiety, greets you with the cheerful weariness of a man who's seen too much. He's got a permanent limp, a souvenir from a saber wound, and a passion for pharmacology that mostly involves mixing everything in arm's reach and waiting to see what explodes. You explain your symptoms. Headache? Yes, but also general life malaise, fatigue, and the kind of existential dread that only comes from reading too many late 19th century newspapers. He nods sagely, as if all life's mysteries can be solved by something sweet and slightly dangerous. You know what you need? He says, brandishing a measuring cup with the gravitas of a man about to invent brunch. A tonic for the brain. He starts to work. First, a generous pour of sugary syrup. Not just a spoonful, more like the entire spoon. Then, the magic ingredient. Coca leaf extract, straight from South America. Delivered by train, and probably blessed by at least one confused customs official. Next comes the cola nut. Because if you're going to invent a new beverage, you might as well double down on the caffeine. There's also a dash of something herbal and a whisper of caramel coloring, because you wouldn't want your medicine to look healthy. He stirs. The concoction bubbles and fizzes in its glass beaker like a mad scientist's potion. except this one is meant to be served over ice with a side of optimism. The color is a dark, mysterious brown, the shade of confidence or possibly old pennies. The first sip burns, then soothes, then sets your soul on fire in a way no healthy lifestyle has ever managed. You immediately forget about your headache, your bad knee, and even your cousin's annoying opinions about gold-backed currency. Outside, Atlanta is bustling. A city where the Civil War scars haven't fully healed, and everyone is searching for an edge, a miracle, or at least a reason to feel a little better about getting out of bed. Word spreads fast. People start dropping by, not just for headaches, but for every ailment under the southern sun. Melancholy, indigestion, low spirits, heartbreak, general Tuesdays. Pretty soon, Pemberton is selling as much brain tonic as he can stir, pour, and bottle, and the pharmacy takes on the energy of a jazz club crossed with a chemistry lab. There's no FDA yet, so nobody's asking questions. If your elixir promises life, energy, and focus, nobody needs to know it comes with a minor side of narcotic enthusiasm. The tonic's popularity soars. Dr. Pemberton starts daydreaming about a future where every American can pop into their local soda fountain and emerge happier, peppier, and possibly vibrating at a higher frequency. The truth? You're not just buying medicine. You're drinking the future. Coca-Cola is about to become the most accidental sensation in American history, one refreshing headache remedy at a time. And as you step out onto the Atlanta street, you realize you feel amazing. You've forgotten your own name, and you just might invent jazz by breakfast. That's the secret recipe. A little science, a lot of sugar, and the kind of wild optimism only possible before anyone invented liability insurance. Welcome to the first sip of America's favorite drink. Good luck sleeping tonight. Imagine a world where side effects may include euphoria, and wanting to dance with the mailman is not a warning, but a sales pitch. You sip your newfangled health drink and realize you're halfway to starting a jazz band in your living room. The early days of Coca-Cola were less about refreshment and more about professional multitasking. Let's talk multitasking. The kind only possible in an era when the average prescription included alcohol, opium, and a wink from your pharmacist. It's 1890, and you've got a cough, a case of the blues, and possibly gout. What you need is something soothing, invigorating, and above all, available without a prescription. Enter Coca-Cola, the temperance drink with a kick that makes you forget your temper and your laundry list of medical complaints. You step up to the marble counter, flanked by polite society, matrons and local businessmen who look like they haven't blinked in hours. The soda jerk grins knowingly as he pours your glass. There are no child-proof caps, no warning labels, just an ornate sign advertising nervous system restoration and gentle stimulation of the faculties. You're not entirely sure which faculties, but it sounds promising. As the bubbles tickle your nose, you notice a stack of pamphlets touting Coca-Cola's benefits: cures for headache, fatigue, toothache, and, for reasons never explained, female hysteria. There's even a vague promise that it will make you more sociable, which is reassuring, because you just agreed to sponsor the town square dance, and you don't even own shoes. It's the golden age of patent medicines, and the market is a free-for-all. Every pharmacist in America is trying to outdo the next with tonics, syrups, and elixirs, most of which contain ingredients you'd need a special permit to import today. There's Dr. Jones's magic, soothing elixir, now with more opium, Mrs. Wiggins' miracle restorative, best enjoyed in moderation, but nobody does. And, of course, every flavor of cough syrup that can double as paint stripper. Coca-Cola slides into this market with an energy that borders on reckless. Ads promise delicious and refreshing, with a sly nod to the fact that you'll be both awake and blissfully unconcerned about your cholesterol. And unlike other medicines, you don't have to suffer through bitter brews or suspiciously chunky syrups. Coke tastes good. Too good. You finish your glass and immediately want another. You probably want to buy stock in the company too, but that's the euphoria talking. Let's not forget the business side. Coca-Cola's founders aren't just pharmacists, they're hustlers, capitalists, and accidental mad scientists. Pemberton's original formula is quickly bought up, sold, resold, and refined by men with an eye for profit and a disregard for subtlety. Asa Candler, an early investor, realizes that with the right marketing, Coca-Cola could sell not just as medicine, but as a lifestyle. The product shifts from pharmacy counters to soda fountains and then, soon enough, to bottle form, ready to travel anywhere an American might need a pick-me-up. The result? America becomes a nation of alert, chatty, slightly vibrating consumers. Lunch breaks turn into Coke breaks. Boardrooms are suddenly full of bright ideas and erratic doodles. The average Sunday school teacher has more energy than a roomful of caffeinated squirrels. And somewhere, a group of investors is counting money faster than the ingredients list can be read out loud. Of course, not everyone is thrilled. Some doctors grumble about overstimulation. Temperance unions worry that Coca-Cola might be too enjoyable for the moral good of the public. Meanwhile, sales soar, and the formula stays just mysterious enough that nobody's asking too many questions. So you finish your second glass, feeling a strange mix of optimism, nervous energy, and the sudden urge to alphabetize your sock drawer. The line at the counter never gets shorter. Capitalism has found its new champion. A cough syrup turned cultural phenomenon, powered by chemistry and sold with a grin. The early days of Coca-Cola weren't about quenching thirst. They were about chasing that perfect, sparkling, mildly unhinged feeling, one sip at a time. Welcome to history's most productive sugar high. You're sweating through your best wool suit in the Georgia sun, so you step into a soda fountain for relief. The air is thick with perfume, politics, and patent medicine. The pharmacist slides you a glass of bubbling brown mystery. Trust me, he says. It's invigorating. You're about to believe him. Let's take a moment to appreciate your situation. It's the 1880s 0S, and Atlanta in summer is about as forgiving as a tax collector on commission. Your shirt is glued to your back, your eyebrows are sweating, and every carriage that rattles past kicks up more dust than a desert stampede. It's the kind of heat that makes you rethink your life choices and your wardrobe. You're desperate for something cold, something refreshing, or, failing that, something that will distract you from the fact that your socks are basically small, woolen bathtubs. Lucky for you, the soda fountain has arrived in town. Picture it. Marble counters gleaming, at least until the next horse parade goes by. Brass fixtures polished to a blinding shine, and rows of ornate glassware lined up like soldiers awaiting their next deployment. This isn't just a pharmacy, it's the social hotspot of the era. Teenagers flirt here. Politicians whisper deals. Society matrons drop by just for a tonic, which is code for a gossip session that could melt the wallpaper. You make your way to the counter, dodging a pair of schoolchildren high on sarsaparilla and an elderly man swearing that his favorite elixir once cured his liver agitation. Behind the bar, the soda jerk, that's not an insult, it's a job title, is performing feats of acrobatic syrup pouring that would give a modern mixologist an inferiority complex. He's got the style, the speed, and the forearm strength of a competitive arm wrestler. His vest is tight, his hair is parted with military precision, and he wields his soda siphon like a conductor's baton. Soda fountains aren't just about the drinks, they're about the show. Each glass is made to order. Syrups are measured, ice is cracked, and carbonated water is dispensed with a satisfying hiss. Your invigorating glass fizzes to life, frothy and mysterious, topped with just the right amount of crushed ice to guarantee brain freeze and short-term happiness. It smells vaguely of caramel, cola nut, and the faintest whiff of whatever the pharmacist had left over from the last experiment. This is not a time for questions. You take your first sip. It's cold. It's sweet. It hits your tongue with a tingle and travels to your brain like a telegram from the future. Congratulations! You are now 8% more awake and 100% more optimistic. The effect is immediate. You no longer care about the heat, your suit, or the fact that the person next to you is definitely not wearing enough deodorant. You just want another glass, and maybe to shake the pharmacist's hand. He's created magic. And the best part? It's legal. For now. Around you, Atlanta's elite are debating the city's future over glasses of cherry phosphate and lime Ricky. Housewives compare notes on who makes the best ginger ale. Strangers exchange tips on the fastest cure for nerves and the best routes to avoid the worst horse traffic. The soda fountain has become Atlanta's living room, a democratic gathering place where everyone, from bankers to blacksmiths, shares the same sticky counter. Of course, there's an undercurrent of salesmanship humming through it all. Every pharmacist claims his Prasida's tonic is the best, the purest, the one most likely to give you back the spring in your step, and possibly the will to live through another summer. Proprietary formulas are closely guarded secrets, but every new customer is a potential regular, and nobody leaves without at least 3 recommendations for what to drink next. As you finish your glass, you realize you're hooked, not just on the taste, but on the ritual. The soda fountain is where Atlanta goes to cool off, catch up, and get a little bit wired. It's more than a beverage. It's a social revolution in a glass. And tomorrow, you'll be back, suit and all, sweating, smiling, and ready for another invigorating mystery. Because in Atlanta, and soon all of America, relief comes with bubbles, a flourish, and a promise. Life is always better at the fountain. It's 1920. You can't buy beer or wine, but somehow the local soda jerk can pour you something that'll make you forget your taxes. Prohibition hits, and Coca-Cola suddenly becomes the naughtiest drink in town, despite technically being the clean option. The lines get blurry, and so do your morals. Let's set the scene. America is dry. Dry as a Baptist picnic. Dry as a mouthful of sawdust. You've just lived through World War I, and the only thing scarier than your neighbor's mustache is the thought of a Saturday night without a single drop of hooch. The 18th Amendment has rolled in like a moral thundercloud. Saloons shutter, breweries bite the dust, and suddenly there are more people pretending to enjoy lemonade than ever before. Except, of course, the lemonade is suspiciously brown, smells like caramel, and comes with enough caffeine to fuel a small jazz band. You wander into the soda fountain, feeling rebellious for craving something that isn't cold chicken and silent despair. The place is packed. Everybody's thirsty. Everybody's nervous. And everyone is a little bit desperate to forget their own family for an hour. Or 2. On the marble counter, the menu boasts root beer, sarsaparilla, phosphate, and, front and center, the new king of the beverage world, Coca-Cola. The soda jerk, now America's hottest job outside of bootlegger and federal agent, serves up tall glasses with a wink and a nod. A little something for what ails you, he says, which is code for, this won't get you arrested, but it might make you feel like you've done something vaguely illicit. People line up for that feeling. Grandmothers, high schoolers, traveling salesmen with pocket watches and hidden agendas, they all sidle up to the counter for their legal fix. Here's the thing about Prohibition. It doesn't actually make America any less wild. If anything, it just drives the wildness into new and creative directions. When you outlaw alcohol, you don't just kill the party. You make the party weirder, sneakier, and prone to ending with someone in a chicken suit running from the police. Coca-Cola rides this cultural shift like a champion rodeo clown. Suddenly, the drink that was invented as a brain tonic is now the last respectable vice in town. You sip your Coke and listen to the chatter. Someone's whispering about a speakeasy behind the barber shop. Another regular is bragging about how his cousin makes bathtub gin that could remove wallpaper. But tonight, nobody needs secret knocks or passwords. The thrill is all here. Fizzing and bubbling, poured from the unmistakable glass bottle with a logo that promises both comfort and just a little bit of rebellion. The church ladies grumble. Some say even soda is too exciting for the moral health of the nation. Temperance advocates, once giddy about the fall of alcohol, start to worry that maybe all these new drinks are a gateway to sin. There are even newspaper articles accusing Coca-Cola of overstimulating the youth, and the phrase soda fiend briefly becomes a thing you can get accused of in court. Meanwhile, sales explode. Bottling plants multiply. Coke advertising ramps up to near messianic levels, promising refreshment, sociability, and possibly salvation from the great American thirst. It's not all innocent fun. Some folks try to spike their Cokes with bootleg whiskey or homemade rum, leading to an unholy alliance between soda jerks and the city's shadiest characters. Secret recipes spread like rumors. Coke cocktails are born. The Prohibition-era Coke highball isn't fooling anybody. But that's kind of the point. Even when you're following the letter of the law, you're always one sip away from mischief. By the end of the decade, the lines between temperance and temptation have fully dissolved in a syrupy, carbonated haze. Coke isn't just a drink, it's a statement. You're sober, but you're still part of the action. The bar is gone, but the party is right here, under the soda fountain's fluorescent lights. In the great paradox of American morality, Prohibition tried to kill vice, and ended up handing the throne to Coca-Cola. You leave the counter feeling wide awake, slightly buzzed, and just naughty enough to come back tomorrow. Because sometimes the clean option is the most intoxicating thing of all. Billboards sprout like dandelions. Suddenly, you can't walk 5 feet without seeing a grinning child, a glass bottle, and the promise of delicious, refreshing uplift. You realize America is about to be marketed into a frenzy, and you're not immune. It's the early 1900s, and you can't escape it. Every blank wall, every brick barn, every shop window in America has been transformed into a shrine for Coca-Cola. Turn left. A painted mural of a pretty woman holding up a frosty glass with the devotion of someone being offered the last parachute on the Titanic. Turn right. A sign promising relief from fatigue and brain exhaustion, as if your job at the widget factory is best survived with a steady drip of cola to the veins. The country is no longer just drinking Coke. They're swimming in it. Advertising included. You stroll down Main Street, and the scenery changes from old-timey small town to Coke-themed fever dream. Horses wear branded feed bags. Barbershops offer a complimentary Coke with every shave. Even the local dentist, whose livelihood is directly threatened by all this sugar, proudly displays a Coca-Cola clock, probably set permanently to tooth extraction o'clock. The men behind this marketing madness are America's first true ad men, decades before Mad Men made it look glamorous. They have slicked hair, bold suits, and absolutely no sense of restraint. Asa Candler, the business brain who bought Coca-Cola from Pemberton, figures out that in America, the only thing more addictive than caffeine is a good slogan. He hands out coupons for free drinks like he's trying to get elected mayor. He blankets every newspaper, trolley car, and country store with hand-painted signs declaring Coca-Cola the best thing since, well, ever. In the boardrooms of Atlanta, the first generation of brand strategists is born. Their strategy? Saturation. You don't just want a Coke. You need to see the logo so many times your dreams start featuring polar bears and bottle caps. The classic Spencerian script, flowing and elegant, is plastered on every available surface until you're pretty sure it's the only cursive word you know how to read. Delicious and refreshing. Drink Coca-Cola. Thirst knows no season. You might forget your own anniversary, but you'll never forget these slogans. And the imagery? It's a parade of pure optimism. Cherubic children hoist bottles bigger than their heads. Impossibly wholesome teenagers sip together on park benches, and well-dressed couples toast each other at soda fountains in a moment so wholesome it might violate modern privacy laws. According to Coke's ads, there is no problem that can't be solved with a glass of syrupy brown effervescence. Headache? Have a Coke. Hot day? Have a Coke. Existential dread about modern life? The answer, as always, have a Coke. Even Santa Claus gets a makeover. The bearded saint morphs from a spindly, vaguely suspicious old man into the jolly, red-suited embodiment of Christmas cheer. All because Coca-Cola's artists needed a winter campaign. Now, when you think of Santa, you think of a guy with a Coke bottle in his mitten and a glint of sugar-fueled mischief in his eye. Suddenly, the holidays aren't just about family and faith. They're about beverage branding too. You're not immune, of course. You try to resist. You tell yourself you'll just have water at lunch, but there's a sign above the cooler. You plan to walk right past the pharmacy, but they're offering a nickel a glass special with banners so big they block out the sundae. You give in. You're human. Besides, all your friends are doing it. By 1920, Coca-Cola's marketing machine has achieved what most religions only dream of. Universal recognition, unwavering loyalty, and a lot of very happy, slightly jittery followers. You realize you haven't just been sold a drink. You've been sold a lifestyle, a dream, and a permanent place on America's collective sweet tooth. So you smile, sip, and surrender. Because when advertising goes wild, nobody stands a chance against the world's greatest sugar rush in a bottle. Let's talk ingredients. You peer into the bottle, wondering just how much pep is in your pep tonic. The answer: enough to make Sigmund Freud jealous. It's not a bug, it's a feature, and nobody's hiding it. In the Gilded Age pharmacy, there's no such thing as too much of a good thing, especially if it comes in powder form and comes from somewhere slightly mysterious. You've heard rumors that the Coca-Cola syrup is laced with extract of coca leaf. The word extract sounds safe, almost like something you'd sprinkle on a cake, until you realize you're basically drinking the pharmaceutical equivalent of a marching band in your nervous system. Here's the wildest part. Nobody's whispering. Cocaine isn't just legal, it's a point of pride. The early ads boast, in a polite southern drawl, about the invigorating powers of coca and cola nuts, with the subtlety of a circus parade. You can practically hear Pemberton himself waving a beaker around and announcing, "It perks you up, makes you lively, and, if you drink enough, you'll probably invent a new kind of jazz." This isn't a hush-hush secret ingredient. This is front-page news in the world of 1890s medical beverages. You sit at the soda fountain, glass in hand, and watch as respectable Atlanta matrons, bowler-hatted lawyers, and the town's worst-behaved teenagers all line up for their daily dose of refreshment. Your pharmacist has a twinkle in his eye and absolutely zero qualms about doling out the pep. "It'll clear your head," he says. "Settle your nerves, cure your hangover, your heartbreak, and, if the ads are to be believed, your general sense of malaise about living through the 19th century. The line between doctor's orders and party starter has never been blurrier. Take a closer look at the science. Back then, nobody's talking about controlled substances. The word addiction is still mostly used for gambling and card games. In fact, the American medical establishment, from the fanciest Harvard man down to your cousin's cousin with the traveling snake oil wagon, thinks cocaine is a wonder drug. Sigmund Freud, world's most famous couch-based therapist, is writing fan mail to coca leaves. Doctors are using it for everything from toothache to melancholia. You've got an upset stomach? Have a Coke. Shy at social events? Have a Coke. Need to finish building that railroad before sunrise? Have two. And it's not just the doctors, athletes swear by it. Politicians endorse it. And, for a brief moment in American history, a grandmother in Ohio writes to her local newspaper about how she finally beat her knitting anxiety with a bottle of Coca-Cola a day. Nobody is worried about side effects, except maybe the sudden urge to rearrange all your living room furniture at 3 a.m. Of course, there are a few early critics, mostly church ladies and very tired parents, who start noticing that young Tommy can now play hopscotch for 17 consecutive hours without blinking. But the official stance? The more life-giving properties, the better. If your beverage doesn't buzz, it's just water with a bad attitude. Even the advertising leans into the hype. Tired? Depressed? Listless? Try Coca-Cola. The formula is whispered about in every corner of the country. But the main takeaway is always the same. It works. You can practically hear your nerves humming, your brain cells tangoing, and your heart politely asking for a day off. For years, nobody seriously questions the wisdom of this approach. America wants pep, and Coke delivers. It's not until later, when science catches up, politicians start to grumble, and the world gets just a little more careful about what goes into its beverages, that the feature becomes a problem. But for now, you're living in an era of boundless optimism, bottomless glasses, and a national mood that's part celebration, part involuntary tap dance. So, as you drain your glass and wipe the sweat from your brow, remember, in the world of early Coca-Cola, the only thing more powerful than the marketing was the formula. It wasn't just a soft drink. It was America's favorite legal vice, one deliciously invigorating, eyebrow-raising, totally not subtle sip at a time. Your doctor looks you in the eye, strokes his mustache, and prescribes a bottle of Coke for your nerves. You try not to laugh, because you're too busy shaking from the last dose. Medical science has never been so sweet, or so completely unregulated. Let's rewind to an era where licensed medical professional often meant guy who owns a white coat and a subscription to Scientific American. You walk into the doctor's office, head full of complaints, fatigue, melancholy, a lingering cough, perhaps a suspicion that your soul just isn't peppy enough for modern living. The air smells like mothballs and camphor oil, and the only thing more intimidating than the jar of leeches by the window is the doctor's collection of patent medicine bottles lining the walls like trophies from a very confused pharmacist. With grave seriousness, the doctor taps his fountain pen on your chart. You need stimulation of the nerves, he declares, as if he's reading from the gospel of brisk walking and reckless self-medication. You're expecting a tonic, maybe a strong tea, or at worst, a spoonful of something with the flavor profile of industrial solvent. But no, he reaches for a cool glass bottle, condensation beading on the side. Drink this daily, he says, and avoid strenuous thought. Sage advice. That bottle? It's Coca-Cola. Straight from the pharmacy shelf, right next to the morphine drops and the Dr. Jones all-night elixir. You crack the cap, take a swig, and feel the sweet, fizzy lightning race up your spine and straight into your frontal lobe. Is it working? Absolutely. Are you cured? Well, you definitely forgot what you came in for. In this golden age of questionable medicine, Coca-Cola is marketed as a cure for everything from headaches to indigestion to the vague catch-all female troubles. If you have a problem, Coke can fix it, or at least make you so energetic you no longer care. The advertisements are a fever dream of confidence, relieves exhaustion, soothes the mind, refreshes the weary. There's a remedy for every complaint, and all of them involve drinking a soda fountain's worth of caramel-colored pep. Doctors, for their part, love it. Why prescribe something bitter when you can send your patients home happy, giddy, and just a little bit addicted to the ritual of coming back for a refill? You're pretty sure the local physician hasn't slept since Cleveland was president. Meanwhile, every pharmacy becomes part soda parlor, part emergency room, and part social club for anyone looking to feel better, fast. The truth is, nobody really knows how this stuff works. Just that it does, with an efficiency matched only by small-town gossip and the post office during tax season. Your doctor encourages you to listen to your body. The problem is, after 3 Cokes, your body is mostly listening to the walls. Even the labels play fast and loose with reality. Some bottles come with friendly reminders that Coke is not a stimulant, sure, and water isn't wet, or that it contains only the finest medicinal ingredients. If you read the fine print, you'll find a cocktail of coca leaf, cola nut, and a heroic dose of sugar, enough to turn the shyest patient into a motivational speaker by lunch. The medical establishment is all in. Hospitals offer Coke to patients recovering from surgery, and the family doctor's toolkit is just as likely to include a bottle opener as a stethoscope. For children, why not? It's less dangerous than street milk, and certainly tastier than the home remedies your grandma recommends. You can't help but notice the side effects. A sudden urge to reorganize your pantry, the ability to read by moonlight, and a constant, humming sense of possibility. Sure, your nerves are better, mainly because they're now operating at the speed of a telegraph operator during a thunderstorm. By the time you leave the doctor's office, you're convinced. You may not be healthier, but you're definitely happier, a little more optimistic, and marginally more likely to buy stock in the Coca-Cola company. Medical science has moved on, but for a golden, syrupy decade, the best prescription for whatever ailed you was simple. Take 2 Cokes and call in the morning. Every pharmacy in America is trying to outdo Coke. There's celery cola, dope, and something called Moxie, which tastes like carbonated regret. You sample them all because you're not a quitter. Your taste buds will never forgive you. It's 1905, and the patent medicine aisle is where taste buds go to test their faith in humanity. The whole country has soda fever. Every town, every corner, every mustachioed pharmacist with access to a barrel and a dream. Coca-Cola's success has triggered an arms race of creativity, desperation, and unlicensed chemistry. If it can bubble, fizz, or leave you wondering if you accidentally swallowed a liniment, someone will slap a label on it and call it a vital tonic. You start at the top of the soda food chain. Celery cola greets you with the cool promise of vegetables, but what you actually get is the taste of a nervous breakdown served over ice. Next up is dope, a drink whose main selling point is that nobody can remember what's actually in it. Possibly sassafras, possibly a cry for help. You've barely finished swallowing when the pharmacist offers the bottle of Moxie. The label swears it's full of nerve food and invigorating properties, but it tastes like somebody dared a root beer to get a PhD in bitterness. You can't decide if you feel smarter, angrier, or just deeply confused. Every drink is a roll of the dice. There's Cheer Up, a lemony concoction that's so tart it could etch glass. And Pepsi, which at this stage in history is still a low-budget digestive aid and not yet Coca-Cola's nemesis. Someone hands you a bottle of Vim. It's not clear whether you're supposed to drink it or rub it on your joints. Dr. Pepper arrives on the scene, claiming to have 23 flavors, but you can only identify 3, sugar, mystery, and nostalgia, for when you could taste things normally. The competition is fierce and occasionally unhinged. Every bottle boasts of unique health benefits. One promises to cure melancholy and foot odor. Another claims to boost your intestinal fortitude. There's even a kidney wow that probably works mostly by scaring you into drinking water instead. Slogans are everywhere. It puts pep in your step. For that youthful zing, recommended by people who've survived it. Behind the counters, soda jerks develop their own loyalty. Some are devoted to Coke, others to the plucky upstart Royal Crown, while a few have sworn their souls to the murky, minty waters of Hire's root beer. Each camp has its rituals and secret mixes, with customers sneaking in for their favorite house blend the way today's hipsters hunt for artisanal espresso. The wildest part? These drinks aren't regulated. The only limit is your willingness to experiment and your ability to ignore the taste of medicinal herbs and creative spelling on the label. Some sodas are so full of sugar and caffeine that you could use them to jumpstart a Ford Model T. Others have natural flavors which, according to the FDA's later definition, could mean anything from a splash of real fruit to a suggestion from a passing raspberry. It's the soda equivalent of the Wild West. You try them all, one after another. By the time you finish your 5th elixir, you're not sure if you're cured of your ailments or have acquired several new ones. You've experienced bitterness, mouth-coating sweetness, and at least one aftertaste that might require a priest. And yet, people love it. For every Coke loyalist, there's someone who swears by Moxie, someone else who's oddly passionate about celery cola, and a few folks who just like the thrill of the unknown. America's soda obsession is about more than flavor. It's about hope, novelty, and the belief that the next bottle might finally be the miracle cure, or at least a fun story to tell your grandchildren. So you burp politely, wipe your mouth, and give thanks to your taste buds for their bravery. In the jungle of rival elixirs, you've survived, and that's no small feat. With the saloons shut down, the real action moves to the soda fountain. It's loud, it's busy, and everyone's just a little bit wired. You grab a seat next to a Sunday school teacher and a man selling hair tonic. Nobody here is drinking alcohol, but everybody's up to something. You've landed in the Prohibition era, a time when America decides the only thing more dangerous than bathtub gin is unregulated fun. Gone are the days of swinging doors and grizzled bartenders. In their place, marble countertops stretch beneath gleaming brass taps, manned by soda jerks with more showmanship than a traveling circus and hair pomade strong enough to withstand a hurricane. Take in the scene. The place hums with the white noise of a half-dozen conversations and a half-dozen more sugar highs. Every table is packed. Children trade marbles, grandmothers gossip, and local businessmen plot their next big deal over phosphate and pie. There's the gentle hiss of carbonated water, the clink of ice in glass tumblers, and the periodic whoosh as a soda jerk pulls a lever with the gusto of a man launching a rocket to Mars. These are the new American bars. Only instead of whiskey, the drinks come in every hue of the rainbow, each topped with an audacious mountain of whipped cream, a cherry, and maybe a half-hearted slice of banana if you look like you could use some vitamins. The black sheep of your family, who once ordered whiskey neat, now demands a cherry lime Ricky, extra phosphate. The regulars don't even miss the hangovers. The soda fountain is a stage, and the soda jerk is both bartender and magician. Watch him sling glasses, flip scoops, and spin tales about secret recipes and mysterious ingredients. If you're lucky, you might witness the elusive double flip float, a move that, while technically just a root beer float prepared with flair, draws applause worthy of a Broadway show. The menu reads like the diary of a sugar-addled mad scientist. Green River, lemon phosphate, chocolate malt, coffee soda, and, of course, Coca-Cola, the drink that manages to be both medicine and mischief in a single bottle. Everyone comes here for different reasons. The local reverend claims he's just refreshing the flock, but somehow ends up with a frosted mug and a smile suspiciously wide for a man who just banned dancing. The town's aspiring flapper sips on a strawberry soda, practicing the Charleston under the table. The man selling hair tonic? He's already on his third vanilla phosphate and swears it makes his sales pitch 25% more convincing. But make no mistake, the soda fountain is not all innocence and ice cream. Deals are struck in quiet corners. Rival teens make plans for the Saturday night dance. A bootlegger in disguise trades coded glances with the pharmacy's backroom clerk. After all, where there's a will, there's always a hidden bottle of something stronger under the counter, and the code word is usually special syrup. Sometimes a customer slips the soda jerk a folded note and receives a mysterious prescription in return. Some things never change. In the absence of alcohol, people get creative. Old-timers start soda tasting contests, daring each other to drink the sourest lemon phosphate or the weirdest celery tonic on the menu. Children race to see who can blow the biggest bubble without getting thrown out. Sweethearts share 2 straws and dream of a future where their biggest problem is running out of nickels for refills. Despite all the fizz, foam, and fevered conversation, there's a comfort in this dry bar chaos. For a generation deprived of its old vices, the soda fountain offers something sweeter: community, ritual, and a place to be loud, silly, or just quietly wired together. So you take another sip, grin at the Sunday school teacher, and tip your imaginary hat to the soda jerk. This is Prohibition's hidden upside. A world where even the most innocent glass of fizz can feel like an act of rebellion, and where the real buzz comes from sugar, style, and stories told late into the night. Your mother hands you a chilled bottle and says it'll calm your nerves before church. You're 9 years old, and you're about to discover what hyperactivity really means. Let's set the scene. It's a Sunday morning in small-town America, and you're dressed in your scratchiest clothes, the kind of outfit that makes you look like a miniature bank teller. Your only hope for surviving an hour on a wooden pew is the bottle of Coca-Cola, sweating gently in your palm. The grown-ups insist it's good for your constitution. Nobody warns you about the sugar crash scheduled for precisely 10 minutes into the sermon. The logic here is classic, pre-FDA parenting. If it says invigorating on the label, it must be wholesome for growing bodies. Besides, you've already had syrup for your cough, tonics for your energy, and nerve drops for, well, nobody's really sure. So why not a little cola before church? It'll settle you down, says your mother, who, judging by her own glass, hasn't sat still since 1893. You take your first sip, and it's like swallowing fireworks. Bubbles tickle your nose, sugar zings your brain, and something deep inside your bones shouts, "Let's do algebra, climb a tree, and write a novella." All at once, your siblings have their own bottles, each daring the others to chug faster before the next hymn. It's a miracle anyone in the congregation can stay seated at all. The pews are packed with children vibrating like tuning forks, each one powered by a fresh hit of cola. The choir director's hand shakes as she flips the pages. Little Timmy in the next row has developed a 1,000-yard stare. And it's only been 6 minutes since he finished his bottle. The minister clears his throat, trying to talk over the sound of 40 sugar-fueled sneakers tap dancing against the wooden floorboards. If you listen closely, you can almost hear the collective heartbeat of the Sunday school room. Rapid, irregular, and ready to burst into a gospel-infused game of tag at any moment. Outside of church, Coke is everywhere. Birthday parties, county fairs, after baseball practice. Kids share bottles with the same reverence today's parents reserve for organic fruit snacks. Neighborhood lemonade stands start stocking Coke for a nickel a pop. The neighbor's dog drinks it, and now he's also running laps around the backyard. There are no school nutrition guidelines, just a faint hope that cola builds character. Teachers hand out Coca-Cola to reward good behavior, which usually backfires when recess turns into a speed-walking competition to the moon. Lunchboxes are heavy with glass bottles, and mothers sigh in relief when the soda's medicinal value is cited in ads. The only thing kids don't get is coffee, because, of course, that's too stimulating. Meanwhile, the Coke ads double down. Smiling children, red-cheeked and bright-eyed, beam from billboards and magazine pages. Delicious and refreshing for the possible whole family, promises one. The pause that refreshes, says another, though nobody pauses for long after a serving. The drink is as American as baseball and as omnipresent as homework. And, for better or worse, nobody seems to notice the fallout. Kids bounce off the walls, teachers develop migraines, and dentists start pricing out lake houses thanks to their booming business. Still, the ritual sticks. Sipping Coke is a rite of passage, a secret handshake among sugar-soaked youth. By the end of the day, you're a little older, a lot more jittery, and the proud owner of a few new cavities. But as you finally collapse into bed, mind racing with half-formed ideas and a hymn you can't quite forget, you realize something profound. History's greatest energy drink was never just for grown-ups. It was for every kid who wanted to taste a little bit of rebellion, a little bit of freedom, and a whole lot of bubbles. And if the preacher's sermon about restless spirits hits a little too close to home, just blame it on the Coke. Your mother hands you a chilled bottle and says it'll calm your nerves before church. You're 9 years old, and you're about to discover what hyperactivity really means. Let's set the scene. It's Sunday morning in small-town America. Your hair has been combed to a shine. Your shirt is buttoned all the way up, and you've been stuffed into a pair of pants that pinch in all the wrong places. The family's gathered in the living room for the ritual pre-church pep talk. Grandpa's already napping in his chair, Dad's polishing his shoes, and Mom is, miracle of miracles, smiling as she hands you a sweating glass bottle of Coca-Cola. Take a few sips, honey. It'll help you sit still. You, innocent, trusting, and definitely not still, gulp it down like a magic potion. The first thing you notice is the cold bite of carbonation, followed by a syrupy sweetness that makes your taste buds do cartwheels. Then, a fizzing surge of energy ripples down to your toes. You suddenly feel capable of anything. Reciting all your Bible verses, outrunning the family dog, or perhaps assembling a small rocket out of hymnals and Sunday school glue. Your mother looks pleased. Your siblings look terrified. They've seen this before. Out the door you go, bouncing down the steps, Coke bottle in hand. In the car, your leg jitters uncontrollably while your older sister tries to read psalms over the din of your spontaneous a cappella rendition of This Little Light of Mine. By the time you reach the church parking lot, you've memorized the Lord's Prayer backwards, organized the offering envelopes by size, and developed a passionate stance on the flavor profile of red versus green Jell-O. Inside the sanctuary, the other kids have that familiar cola glint in their eyes. It's like a club, Everyone's hands are sticky, everyone's knees are bouncing, and every pew is an unofficial jungle gym. Parents exchange looks of resignation as Sunday school teachers brace for the post-Coke chaos. The Reverend is halfway through his sermon on patience. As a virtue, when the ripple of restlessness starts, you see legs swinging, arms waving, whispers growing. Someone drops a hymnal. It echoes like a starter pistol. The sugar rush is in full swing. And the truth is, this is normal. In the first half of the 20th century, giving kids Coca-Cola isn't just accepted, it's practically encouraged. Ads show children with glowing smiles clutching bottles bigger than their heads. Delicious and refreshing, the billboards proclaim, conveniently omitting and mildly catastrophic for youth choir rehearsal. School picnics and birthday parties have Coke on every table, sandwiched between potato salad and deviled eggs. Teachers sometimes hand out bottles as rewards for good behavior, which is a little like rewarding quiet with fireworks. Of course, not everyone is thrilled. Dentists watch with glee as a new generation guarantees their job, security. Grandmothers mutter darkly about nerves and the vapors, but somehow manage to sneak a few sips themselves. The local pharmacist, once the gatekeeper of all things fizzy, now spends half his day restocking glass bottles and the other half answering frantic questions from parents who just want to know if this much energy is normal. By the end of the service, you're either building a pyramid out of pew Bibles or slumped over in the aftershocks of the great sugar crash. Mom gives you a satisfied nod. See? Worked like a charm. She's not wrong. At least until the ride home, when you're sprawled in the back seat, dreaming of bubbles, hymns, and the next cold bottle. In the end, Coke is more than a drink for kids. It's a rite of passage, a family tradition, and, in every sticky, giggling, over-caffeinated memory, a sweet reminder that sometimes history's greatest energy drink came in a bottle, with a mother's blessing and a guarantee of at least one cavity by Christmas. Meet the unsung hero of the Roaring Twenties, the soda jerk. He flips glasses, tells bad jokes, and serves up drinks with more ceremony than a royal coronation. You realize he's seen everything, and he's not judging you for ordering your fifth Coke in an hour. Let's paint the scene. It's 1924. The jazz is hot, the gin is hidden, and the only thing fizzing in public is the soda fountain. You stroll into the local drugstore, the air thick with perfume, hair tonic, and possibility. Behind the marble counter stands a figure in a crisp white jacket, a paper hat perched at a rakish angle. He wields a long-handled spoon like a conductor's baton and flashes a grin bright enough to outshine the neon ice cream soda's 5-cent sign in the window. This is the soda jerk, part showman, part therapist, part culinary engineer. His nickname comes from the brisk jerking motion he uses to pull the soda tap, but don't let that fool you. He's got more flair than a big band trumpet. Solo. With a flick of his wrist, he'll scoop ice cream, drizzle syrup, and launch a maraschino cherry into orbit, all while delivering a punchline about the chicken crossing the road. There's a rumor that the best soda jerks can flip a glass behind their back and catch it with nothing but a wink and a well-timed elbow. But it's not just about the drinks. The soda fountain is the neighborhood's living room, and the jerk is your host. He's heard every story, every complaint, and every secret. The lovesick teen with a penchant for root beer floats, the flustered mother who needs a moment of peace and a double chocolate malt, the mustachioed traveling salesman working his pitch on both the pharmacist and the redhead at the end of the counter. He's the keeper of confidences. He'll pour you a Coke with a little extra syrup if he knows you've had a rough day, and he'll let you linger over your drink long after you've found the prize at the bottom of your Cracker Jack box. If you come in looking nervous, he'll suggest a nerve tonic. Translation, more Coke. If you're celebrating, he'll top your drink with whipped cream and a smile, because that's what soda jerks do. They turn everyday moments into minor miracles. He's also the original mixologist. Forget cocktails. He's inventing new concoctions on the fly. Chocolate phosphate? Sure. Egg cream? Why not? The legendary suicide, which is just every syrup on the counter mixed together and served to anyone with a reckless streak and a strong stomach. No 2 days are ever the same, and every customer gets a show. The soda jerk moves through the rush with effortless charm. He banters with the local kids, debates baseball with the dads, and flirts, always harmlessly, with every grandmother in the room. His jokes aren't always funny, but in a world where laughter is sometimes in short supply, they're always appreciated. He knows when to be a clown and when to be a friend. And when someone orders their 5th Coke in an hour, he just grins, refills the glass, and asks if you want a little extra ice for the road. People confide in him because he listens. He dispenses advice as easily as soda. Sometimes good, sometimes just the verbal equivalent of a sprig of mint. He knows who's sweet on whom, who's up for a promotion, and who's hiding bootleg gin in their purse. By the time you leave, you realize the soda jerk wasn't just serving drinks, he was serving up a little slice of community, one glass at a time. In a decade famous for its secrets, he was America's true bartender. And no matter how many Cokes you order, you always feel better for it. It's the early 1900s. Whispers of maybe too much cocaine start to trouble the air. Politicians, pastors, and worried mothers want answers. The formula begins to change. And suddenly, Coke's kick isn't what it used to be. Let's set the scene. The world is tilting toward the future, and suddenly, everyone's suspicious of what's bubbling in their glass. You're at your usual soda fountain, but the mood is different. The soda jerk is quieter, casting nervous glances at the headline in today's paper. Nation's favorite drink under scrutiny. It turns out, invigorating is a little too invigorating for comfort, and a few too many grandmothers are jitterbugging at family gatherings. The whispers start as harmless gossip. Did you hear Mrs. Finley's boy drank 3 Cokes and started reciting Shakespeare backwards? One church lady asks. There are rumors that Coca-Cola makes people too excitable, too friendly, and, in some cases, too willing to start impromptu dance marathons at Sunday school picnics. In small towns and big cities alike, folks are suddenly reading the label with the intensity normally reserved for love letters and overdue bills. Politicians sense an opportunity. Nothing says, "Vote for me," quite like promising to protect the children from the dangers of cola. Campaigns spring up, demanding pure food and pure families. Temperance leaders who once celebrated Coke as a safe alternative to whiskey now look at the bottle with suspicion, as if it's about to sprout horns and start quoting Nietzsche. Doctors join in, worried about the national nerve crisis and the troubling sight of 8-year-olds who can beat them in a staring contest. Science is on the march, and what was once marketed as medicine is now getting poked, prodded, and analyzed by people in lab coats who do not appreciate a good sugar rush. Meanwhile, the pharmacists, those early cowboys of chemistry, start quietly updating their recipes, hoping nobody notices the missing spark. The big shift comes with the passage of the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1900 ISX. Suddenly, ingredient lists are mandatory, and anything that sounds even remotely exciting has to go. Coca-Cola's leadership is summoned before Congress, where they try to explain, with a straight face, why there's just a little cocaine in the world's most popular beverage. The politicians, unamused, demand reform. Behind closed doors, chemists set to work. Out goes the raw coca leaf, replaced by decocainized extract. The original recipe gets a facelift worthy of a Hollywood starlet, Some regulars claim they can taste the difference. Others just notice the town is a little quieter, and everyone's grandmother suddenly starts napping again. Advertisements do their best to reassure the public. Now, with all the flavor, none of the worry. Just as delicious, but safer for everyone. Slogans grow longer and less catchy. Coke's marketing machine scrambles to invent new reasons to drink up, emphasizing refreshment, family values, and, eventually, adorable polar bears. Still, there are doubters. Every generation has someone who swears, "It tasted better back in my day." And, for once, they might be right. But here's the truth. The spirit of the drink doesn't disappear. People keep coming back for the bubbles, the sweetness, the promise of a little lift, just without the surprise, interpretive dance session. If anything, Coke's survival through the Great Reform era is proof of American adaptability. The formula changes, the world keeps spinning, and by 1917, Coca-Cola is still everywhere. Picnics, baseball games, Sunday socials, and, yes, still in the lunchbox of every child whose parents haven't read the latest science article. By the time you order your next Coke, the controversy has faded. Sure, the kick isn't quite as wild, but neither are the PTA meetings. Life goes on, and as the world sobers up, at least a little, Coke slides comfortably into its new role. Less wild miracle tonic, more family-friendly icon, because in America, you can take the good stuff out of the bottle, but you can't take the bottle out of America's heart. How do you change the most addictive drink in America without telling anyone? Very carefully, and with a lot of clever marketing. You're about to find out why nobody missed the original magic. Let's set the scene. It's the dawn of the 1910s, and the winds of reform are blowing through every kitchen, pharmacy, and soda fountain. The country is getting squeamish about the whole mild narcotic in your children's lunchbox situation. Lawmakers are cracking down. Doctors are scrutinizing ingredients. And suddenly, your favorite glass of Coca-Cola is being treated like a controlled substance instead of an after-school treat. Inside the secret labs of Coca-Cola, a crisis meeting is underway. Men in high collars and nervous mustaches pace the room. The top priority: remove the cocaine, without making it taste like someone dissolved a library fine in seltzer. It's a high-stakes gamble. If the public catches on, the entire fizzy empire could go flat. So, the chemists get to work. They tinker with extracts, boil batches, and whisper about decocainization like it's a magic spell. What does that prize mean? Well, it's less Harry Potter, more Laundry Day. They wash the coca leaves in a bath of solvents to remove all traces of cocaine, leaving behind just enough flavor to keep up appearances. This is the beverage equivalent of pulling off a heist in broad daylight, swapping the crown jewels for rhinestones, and hoping nobody squints. Meanwhile, the marketing department is running distraction like a champion matador. Billboards shout about refreshment and delicious uplift, while not so quietly moving the conversation away from any invigorating properties. The old medicinal ads are quietly retired, and in their place, smiling children, wholesome families, and slogans so squeaky clean you could brush your teeth with them, which, incidentally, you might need to do after your third Coke of the day. The rollout is seamless. Coke quietly shifts from its infamous magic to a new, perfectly legal kind of magic, the sugar rush. People, for the most part, don't notice the difference. Maybe there's a little less pep in your step, a little less danger in your soda run, but there's more fizz, more sweetness, and crucially, zero scandals on the horizon. And here's the genius of it all. The switcheroo isn't announced with a press release or a parade. It happens in the background, disguised by the noise of jazz bands, the distractions of Prohibition, and the fact that most Americans are now more concerned about bootleg gin than about what's floating in their fountain drinks. If anyone does notice, they're too polite or too addicted to the sugar to complain. The few holdouts who grumble about the good old days are quickly swept up in the marketing hurricane. Coca-Cola launches new campaigns. Pure as sunlight. A treat for the whole family. Suddenly, Coke is less about being an edgy tonic and more about being the backbone of backyard picnics and after-church socials. The magic, it turns out, wasn't just in the ingredients, it was in the ritual, the branding, and the feeling that you were part of a sparkling American story. By the time most folks realize the original zing is gone, they don't really mind. The taste is still familiar, the logo still shines, and let's be honest, there's still plenty of pep. Thanks to the mountain of sugar and a splash of caffeine, the American public has moved on, happily swapping their secret stimulant for a legal crowd-pleasing buzz. As you sip your next bottle, you might wonder if you'd even recognize the difference. But that's the beauty of the great Coca-Cola switcheroo. Nostalgia always tastes sweeter than fact. In the end, nobody really missed the old magic, because by the time it disappeared, the real magic was the habit, the marketing, and the comfort of bubbles rising in a glass, promising that everything in America was, at least for now, refreshingly under control. Even after the cocaine fades, the sugar stays. And it stays, and it stays, until your teeth start filing for divorce. The real addiction was hiding in plain sight. Let's take a good look at your average day in 1925. You walk into a corner store, parched and optimistic, and plunk down a nickel for an ice-cold bottle of Coca-Cola. The soda jerk hands it over with a knowing wink. He's seen what happens to first-timers. You pop the cap and take a sip. It's syrupy, sweet, with just enough bite to make you feel like you could run for mayor or at least sprint to the next county fair. By your second bottle, your dentist is sending you a holiday card. Because here's the wild truth. Long after the chemists have cleaned up the cocaine and the lawmakers have stopped fussing over coca leaves, the real party is just getting started, courtesy of cane sugar. If cocaine was the rock star in Coke's early years, sugar is the backup singer who stuck around and quietly took over the whole show. And in America, business is booming. In an age before empty calories was a phrase anyone worried about, sugar was considered a blessing. Doctors wrote columns on the health benefits of quick energy. Housewives poured it into everything from breakfast grits to canned peas. Grandparents handed out gumdrops with the kind of pride usually reserved for war medals. And Coca-Cola? It was sugar's greatest stage, an endless parade of soda fountains, picnics, and lunchboxes, each bottle delivering more sweetness than a Valentine's Day candygram. You start to notice the symptoms. Kids bounce off walls like caffeinated pinballs, their giggles ringing out across the neighborhood. At family suppers, adults joke about having a little pick-me-up with dessert, then spend the rest of the evening reorganizing the silverware drawer and explaining the benefits of indoor plumbing to anyone who'll listen. The phrase sweet tooth starts to sound less like a figure of speech and more like a formal diagnosis. But nobody's worried. Sugar is everywhere, and everyone is in on the secret. Coca-Cola launches campaigns celebrating its pure, wholesome ingredients. Newspapers run features about the wonders of modern food science, complete with smiling children and zero mention of insulin. Advertisers frame sugar as the taste of modern life, progress in a bottle, the future in syrup form, and Americans, always eager for a shortcut to happiness, line up for the next sweet sip. Dentists, meanwhile, See the writing on the wall and on their patients' x-rays. The local dental office starts looking more like an assembly line. Cavities become a childhood milestone. By the time you're old enough to vote, you've got a mouthful of silver and a healthy fear of anyone wearing a white coat and holding a drill. The real miracle is that dental anxiety hasn't replaced baseball as the national pastime. As the decades pass, sugar's reign only gets bolder. The bottles get bigger, the servings grow taller, and refills become not just a menu item, but a state of mind. By the 1950s, Americans are drinking so much Coke that scientists briefly consider using the national blood supply to carbonate the fountains. Birthday parties, summer cookouts, first dates, all are sweetened by the steady drizzle of syrup in every glass. Sugar is the fuel of memory, ritual, and one very hyperactive national identity. Sure, the world eventually wakes up. Medical science changes its tune. Maybe they say, don't put sugar in everything you eat. But by then, the habit is too deep, the urge too strong. Even as diet options and artificial sweeteners try to muscle in, most people stick to what they know. That fizzy, familiar, gloriously sweet rush. So you raise your glass, filled to the brim with nostalgia and more sugar than the human body was ever meant to process, and toast to America's true addiction. Because when it comes to Coca-Cola, it was never just the secret ingredients that kept people coming back. It was the sugar rush hiding in plain sight, making life a little sweeter and the dentist's waiting room just a little busier. You can't just sell a miracle drink in a plain old jug. The race is on to create the world's most recognizable bottle shape. You, the consumer, suddenly care deeply about glass curves and embossed logos. Let's set the stage. It's the early 1900s, and the world is awash in sodas. Everyone and their uncle is bottling up a fizzy tonic and calling it a health revolution. Pharmacies, soda fountains, and grocery stores are crammed with glass containers of every size, shape, and shade of green. At first, you're happy enough to grab a bottle, any bottle, that says cola, and promises a jolt of energy and a brief vacation from reality. But before long, the field is crowded. Every bottle looks more or less the same, like a lineup of suspects in a particularly sweet-natured police drama. Coca-Cola's head honchos start to panic. How will their magic elixir stand out in this sea of sameness? Anyone with a glassblower and a vague sense of adventure can slap cola on a bottle and cash in on the trend. The imitators multiply. Coca, cola, colder, cola, even coke. Some don't even bother changing the label, just the font. Bootleggers and bootstrappers alike are hawking knockoffs in bottles that barely survived the train ride from the factory. What Coca-Cola needs is a game changer. A bottle so distinctive you could pick it out in the dark. Or, as one executive famously put it, recognize it even if it was smashed on the ground. The call goes out to America's glass companies, a challenge worthy of an Olympic event. Glassmakers huddle over blueprints, pull all-nighters, and probably consume enough syrup to power a county fair. The winning idea comes from the Root Glass Company of Indiana, whose team is inspired by the curvy silhouette of a cacao pod. Ironically, nobody on the design team knows what a coca leaf looks like, but that's a detail for the historians. And so, in 1915, the world meets the iconic Coca-Cola contour bottle. A waist so narrow, it looks like it's wearing a corset, and a bottom so bulbous it could double as a paperweight. It's embossed with the Coca-Cola name, so even the illiterate can tell it's the real thing. Suddenly, everyone is obsessed. Women admire its hourglass shape. Men compete to see how many bottles they can stack before the soda jerk tells them to knock it off. Kids start collecting empties, their bedrooms looking like the world's happiest recycling depot. Advertising leans hard into the new look. Billboards boast, Accept no imitations. Radio jingles sing the praises of glass curves. Bottlers rush to dump their old straight-sided containers and get with the program. Competitors try to copy the shape, but somehow it always comes out wrong, like a funhouse mirror version of the real deal. Meanwhile, Coke's lawyers go on the warpath, wielding cease and desist letters like confetti. Owning a Coke bottle becomes a kind of status symbol. Soda fountains start featuring the contour bottle front and center, like the guest of honor at a high society dinner. Even your great-aunt Gladys, who's never had a Coke in her life, wants an empty bottle for her kitchen window because it's just so pretty. Glass companies begin bragging about their designers like movie studios flaunting starlets. Our bottle, they say, is the only one worth its weight in syrup. The result? The Coca-Cola bottle becomes an American icon, as recognizable as the Statue of Liberty, only with better curves and fewer pigeons. It doesn't just hold soda, it holds memories, nostalgia, and the warm, fuzzy promise that what's inside is the real thing. So next time you see that bottle, curved, gleaming, reassuringly familiar, remember, it wasn't just about the drink. It was about branding, bravado, and the great American pursuit of making even your glassware unforgettable. Because in the world of cola, sometimes it's what's on the outside that counts. Alcohol is outlawed, but that doesn't stop Americans from finding creative loopholes. Suddenly, Coca-Cola is the mixer of choice for every home distiller, jazz musician, and desperate uncle. You try it. It's not bad. Let's set the stage. It's the thick of Prohibition, and America's thirst for mischief has never been stronger. The law says no booze, but that's just an invitation to get clever. In cities and farm towns alike, basement windows glow at midnight, the gentle sound of glass clinking and tin bathtubs sloshing echoing through the silence. Somewhere, your neighbor's mild-mannered aunt is perfecting a moonshine recipe that could power a Model T, and she's not about to drink it straight. Enter Coca-Cola, the innocent, ever-present, bubbly cover story. With beer gone dry and whiskey chased underground, folks turn to whatever's available to disguise the flavor and bite of their homemade spirits. And what's better than a tall, cold Coke? It's sweet, it's fizzy, and it's just mysterious enough to keep Grandma from asking why your lemonade stand is doing record business after dark. You head to the local speakeasy. The password is something delightfully absurd: banana pudding. And inside, it's a wonderland of jazz, laughter, and highly questionable liquor. The band plays a little faster than usual, and the crowd's a little looser. The bartender, who may or may not also be the town dentist, is working 2 jobs and twice as many aliases. He's got a lineup of Coke cocktails that sound mostly made up but taste mostly amazing. The recipes are a mess. 1 part gin, 2 parts Coca-Cola, a squeeze of citrus, and just enough ice to keep your tongue from going numb. If you're lucky, the gin doesn't smell like paint thinner. If you're unlucky, well, good thing Coke can hide almost anything. People start inventing names for their new creations. Rum and Coke, Coke Highball, and the infamous Dizzy Rascal, which is essentially whatever didn't explode in the first batch. Coca-Cola's versatility becomes legendary. No longer just a soft drink, it's the secret sauce for keeping the party legal-ish. Meanwhile, the soda fountain itself doubles as a front. Behind the marble counter, the soda jerk slides glasses across the bar with a wink and a nod. Maybe there's something extra under the counter, maybe not. All you know is that after 2 special Cokes, you're suddenly a better dancer, braver conversationalist, and slightly worse at standing still. At home, family gatherings get interesting. Uncle Roy arrives with a suspicious jug labeled cough syrup and a big grin. He pours a generous splash into a round of Cokes. And suddenly, Grandma is telling stories about her days as a flapper. Even church picnics have an edge. The punch bowl is strictly non-alcoholic, but somehow everyone leaves a little happier, with a vague craving for greasy food and jazz records. Jazz musicians in smoky clubs praise Coke for its ability to cut the burn of bad liquor. It's affordable, reliable, and, best of all, completely legal. The local bootlegger starts offering bundle deals: a quart of gin and a six-pack of Coca-Cola, delivered right to your door with a knock and a secret handshake. America may be on the wagon, but the wagon has cup holders. Of course, this all happens under the watchful eyes of the law. Agents raid a few speakeasies, confiscate barrels of bathtub gin, and inevitably pause for a Coke to calm their nerves afterward. Through it all, Coca-Cola's reputation just grows. The company officially pretends not to notice, but the sales numbers speak for themselves. By the time Prohibition sputters to an end, the world has changed. Coke isn't just a drink, it's the ultimate mixer, the hero of house parties, and the glue holding together 1,000 slightly blurry memories. You raise your glass to ingenuity, resilience, and the American tradition of finding a loophole, preferably one with ice, fizz, and a twist of lime. You overhear wild tales in the barbershop. Coke can clean rust off a bumper, revive dead plants, and maybe summon the spirits of your ancestors. Most of these are not true. Some of them are disturbingly accurate. Let's set the scene. It's a Saturday morning. The barber's chair is spinning, and the conversation is even more effervescent than the cola being poured into little paper cups. Some guy in the corner swears that if you drop a penny in Coke overnight, it'll come out so shiny you could use it as a signal mirror. Someone else claims it'll dissolve a steak in 48 hours, which is either a reason to avoid eating steak or a weird endorsement of Coke's cleaning power. You get a haircut and a crash course in beverage folklore. Coke, it seems, is a miracle in a bottle, or possibly a science experiment gone rogue. You hear that janitors use it to scrub the toilets at the high school, farmers pour it on their fields to kill weeds, or, oddly, to revive wilting tomatoes. The logic on this one is suspect, but nobody's ever accused a barbershop of letting facts get in the way of a good story. If you ask Uncle Vern, it's the only thing strong enough to keep his 1957 Chevy's battery terminals from corroding. One kid claims his cousin used Coke to take the paint off his bike. Tasted fine, he adds. The urban legends don't stop at cleaning supplies. Some folks swear Coke is still full of secret ingredients. Everything from ground-up pearls to extract of beaver gland. A real claim that may say more about human imagination than about the Coca-Cola recipe. There's a persistent myth that Coke once contained a dash of pepper, to keep folks coming back for more. No one can prove it, but it explains why your grandmother sneezes every time she opens a bottle. Then there are the health rumors. Your neighbor's great-aunt Mildred claims Coke cures everything from hiccups to heartbreak, provided you drink it warm with a wedge of lemon. Meanwhile, the local hypochondriac is convinced that a glass of Coke a day will dissolve your bones by age 65. The town dentist, currently shopping for a new boat, insists Coke is liquid cavity, but somehow he's still seen sipping from a bottle behind the curtain. The stories get weirder. Some say the original recipe included everything from battery acid to moonlight distilled at midnight. One conspiracy theorist claims the recipe is locked in a vault guarded by an army of armadillos. No evidence, but the mental image is worth the price of admission. A kid with sticky hands and a wild imagination whispers that if you mix Coke with pop rocks, your stomach will explode. A playground rumor so powerful it makes you eye your candy stash with suspicion for the next decade. Oddly enough, some of the myths have a kernel of truth. Coke really can clean rust off metal, thanks to its acidity. It'll get bloodstains out of clothes. Given enough time and enough apologies to your mother, chemists have verified that it will dissolve a nail, eventually. But the truth is usually less exciting than the legend. The real secret ingredient has always been marketing, and the fact that, deep down, everyone wants to believe their favorite drink is more than just a drink. Still, the mystique sticks. Every time you crack open a bottle, you remember a story, maybe about a guy who used Coke to jumpstart his car, or a grandmother who swears by it as a cake ingredient. You smile, knowing that no matter what's actually in the formula, Coke's greatest power is inspiring a sense of wonder, and maybe a little bit of paranoia. So you raise your glass, toast to urban legends, and take a sip, just in case it really does cure hiccups, clean your pipes, and, if the barbershop chatter is to be believed, make you immortal. If not, at least you've got a good story to tell at your next haircut. You visit Atlanta and discover the city basically runs on Coke. The factory looms like a sugary palace, and everyone seems just a little too cheerful. Let's take a stroll through downtown Atlanta in the 1930s. The heat is thick as syrup, and the air smells like honeysuckle, car exhaust, and caramelized ambition. At every street corner, you spot the unmistakable Coca-Cola logo, painted on brick walls, glowing above diners, shining from trolley cars, and etched into the collective imagination of the city. The place pulses not with jazz or industry, but with the steady, caffeinated heartbeat of the world's most famous drink. You can't walk 3 blocks without encountering someone sipping from a bottle or debating the merits of fountain Coke versus the authentic glass variety. The debate is heated. Families are divided. Some folks insist the real magic comes from a fresh-pulled soda at a marble counter, while others swear by the crispness of a perfectly chilled bottle straight from the icebox. There are rumors of taste tests that nearly ended friendships. In Atlanta, choosing your Coke is as personal as picking a college football team or deciding whether cornbread should be sweet. The city's pride in Coke is relentless. The main bottling plant rises like a cathedral, a gleaming fortress of brick and glass, crowned with billowing plumes of fragrant steam. Inside, the machines clatter and hiss, bottling thousands of drinks every hour, each one destined for a lunch pail, a picnic basket, or the hand of a tourist wondering if all Atlantans are born with a glass bottle in their fist. The workers move with practiced speed, fueled by free samples, and a quiet certainty that their product is better than money in the bank. Corporate headquarters, meanwhile, is less an office and more a command center. Executives in sharp suits plan ad campaigns, expansion strategies, and new ways to spread the gospel of Coke across state lines and oceans. Maps on the wall track shipments to every corner of America and then the world. Some even joke that Atlanta's city water supply is just Coke in disguise, lightly diluted to keep the locals hydrated between bottles. Coca-Cola money flows through every part of town. Parks, museums, and libraries owe their existence to the largesse of the soda dynasty. Philanthropic arms of the company help build hospitals, fund college scholarships, and even keep the city's baseball team in uniforms. When a local charity needs a boost, Coke steps in with a truckload of refreshments and a handful of grinning executives ready for a photo op. The city's biggest events, from the Peach Festival to the mayor's annual picnic, run on the fuel of endless cases of glass-bottled joy. And it's not just the infrastructure, it's the spirit. Atlanta natives speak of Coca-Cola pride like it's a birthright. Schoolchildren visit the plant on field trips, staring in awe as conveyor belts ferry bottles past windows. Summer jobs at the factory are a rite of passage, and landing a gig in marketing is as good as making the big leagues. Even Atlanta's dialect is sprinkled with Cokeisms. Phrases like, have a Coke and a smile, and the infamous Southern catch-all. What kind of Coke do you want? Hint, the answer can be Sprite, Fanta, or even Dr. Pepper. Tourists marvel at the company's reach, the sheer omnipresence of Coke swag, and the infectious optimism that seems to radiate from every local. But under the sweetness, there's grit and ambition. A determination to keep Atlanta on the map, not just as a southern city, but as the hometown of an empire that outpaced kings, countries, and almost every other drink on the planet. So you raise your glass, tip your hat to the soda tycoons, and accept that, in Atlanta, Coca-Cola isn't just a drink. It's a way of life, a point of pride, and, if you stay long enough, a little bit of a personality trait. Coke isn't alone. Everybody is selling something in a bottle, and half of it could get you arrested today. From radium, water to miracle tonics, you realize Coca-Cola is, shockingly, one of the safer options. Step right up. The year is 1912, and America is drowning in bottles. At every county fair, street corner, and pharmacy window, some earnest salesman is shouting about the curative wonders of his latest concoction. Got indigestion? There's a syrup for that. Tired blood? Try a pint of beef juice in seltzer. Chronic gloom? Good news. There's a potion called Doctor, Marvel's invigorating elixir that promises to chase away the blues, cure baldness, and maybe make you fluent in French. The market is a circus, and every bottle is its own sideshow. Some are harmless, if you don't mind chugging a pint of sugared celery juice or chewing on sarsaparilla bark. Others are considerably less gentle. Radium water is all the rage, promising to make you glow with vitality. The only thing glowing, unfortunately, is your urine, and possibly your future medical chart. Elsewhere, Kickapoo Indian Sagwa and Wizard Oil sell by the crate. Each bottle a risky gamble between feeling better or starting to hallucinate in Technicolor. In the midst of this mayhem, Coca-Cola stands out for its relatively tame ingredient list. Sure, there was that little cocaine hiccup, but at least you're not drinking uranium. If anything, Coke is the boring uncle at the family reunion, predictable, sweet, and unlikely to result in a frantic telegram to the poison control board. The fads come fast and thick. A new miracle water from the Alps claims to restore youth. Another tonic promises to rejuvenate the nerves by harnessing the power of crushed electric eels. Proprietary, of course. There's even a product called Vita Globoids that might be soap, might be vitamins, and definitely tastes like neither. The labels are works of art. Gold filigree, illustrations of strongmen, birds in flight, or doctors with suspiciously muscular arms. The claims are even wilder. Instant vigor, cure for melancholia, will not explode if opened. Correctly, the public can't get enough. Housewives swap recipes for home remedies and debate the relative merits of each bottle. Magazine ads trumpet testimonials from beaming invalids who claim their rheumatism vanished after just 3 doses, or at least they stopped complaining about it. Snake oil salesmen ride trains from city to city, inventing new ailments as they go just to sell out the last box of Professor Dewey's soothing compound. Meanwhile, the government lumbers into action. The Pure Food and Drug Act finally appears, aiming to separate actual medicine from creative fiction. Labels get a little more honest, but the spirit of the huckster never dies. If you can't cure the body, you can always charm the wallet. Coca-Cola's marketers notice. They're quick to pivot, trading medical promises for lifestyle ones. Suddenly, Coke isn't a cure-all for what ails you. It's the pause that refreshes, a taste of modernity, a reason to gather with friends and feel like life is a little sweeter. The world keeps spinning, and the shelves are just as full. But the message is smoother. "We're not promising miracles," says Coke. "We're just selling happiness by the bottle." Compared to the bottle next door, that's practically a public service announcement. Looking back, you realize you survived the golden age of snake oil, with your teeth intact and only a mild case of cola dependency. You tip your glass to the carnival of fads and fizz, grateful that for all its quirks, at least Coca-Cola's biggest crime is a little too much sugar, and maybe a few family feuds over whether it's better in a bottle or a glass. In the end, you realize the greatest miracle wasn't in the tonic. It was in the marketing. And in a world of radium cocktails and electric eel juice, Coke was, incredibly, the responsible choice. This isn't just a drink anymore. It's a symbol, a logo, a lifestyle. You spot Coca-Cola signs in the most remote places on Earth and start to wonder if it's actually running the government. Let's zoom out for a second. You're not just standing at a soda fountain. You're standing at the epicenter of a branding earthquake. The year is 1947, and Coca-Cola's logo is everywhere. Painted across barns in Kansas, looming over diners in New York, flickering on neon signs from Paris to Peru. There's a Coke billboard in Times Square, another in Nairobi. And if rumors are true, at least one Antarctic expedition brought more bottles than mittens. The drink that started as a brain tonic in an Atlanta pharmacy has graduated to world domination. And it's done it with nothing more than a carefully crafted logo and enough advertising muscle to put the moon landing to shame. The Coca-Cola script, curvier than a beauty queen, more reliable than a handshake, has achieved what politicians, generals, and poets only dream of: global recognition and near-universal goodwill. You walk into any American small town and the Coke sign is practically a civic landmark. It marks the corner store, the gas station, the only restaurant open after midnight. It's in the background of every family photo and most of the arguments over who gets the last piece of pie. Some people see it and feel thirsty. Others just feel American. The genius behind this is pure marketing sorcery. Coke's early ad men know they're not just selling a drink, they're selling a feeling, a nostalgia for simpler times, the idea of home, a sweet sense of belonging in an ever-faster world. The commercials say it all, the pause that refreshes. It's the real thing. Have a Coke and a smile. The slogans stick in your brain, like the last chorus of a pop song. Even if you haven't had a Coke in years, you can hum the jingle from memory. You realize that you've been quietly trained by years of repetition and product placement. Santa drinks Coke. So do Olympic athletes, American soldiers, country stars, and movie cowboys. There's a sense, especially in the post-war years, that Coca-Cola is as much a part of American identity as apple pie or suspiciously enthusiastic patriotism. You almost expect Congress to take attendance with a Coke bottle instead of a gavel. It goes deeper. Coke becomes a kind of passport. You travel abroad and there it is, like a familiar friend. In Parisian cafes, the waiter rolls his eyes but brings you a bottle anyway. In Cairo, you find it chilling on ice at the bazaar, right next to camel milk. In Saigon, the local kids know how to say Coca-Cola before they know hello. It's rumored that Coke's delivery trucks have gotten closer to the North Pole than Santa's sleigh. The company isn't subtle about it either. Executives talk about opening happiness in every corner of the globe. There's a campaign to plant a Coke sign in every place humans might conceivably get thirsty, or just want a taste of something that feels like home, even if home is thousands of miles away. Brand ambassadors aren't just salesmen, they're cultural diplomats. They hand out free bottles, sponsor festivals, and use Coke to toast peace treaties, sports wins, and Tuesday afternoons. Sometimes, you catch yourself wondering if there's a secret cabal of Coke executives hiding behind the scenes of every major event. Who funded the parade? Who put the Christmas tree in the park? Why does every movie villain have a Pepsi, but the hero always drinks Coke? You never get an answer, but you do get thirsty. In the end, the magic is in the omnipresence. Coke isn't just a product, it's a backdrop to modern life. The soundtrack to road trips and summer barbecues. The liquid mascot for a century of optimism and bold red branding. You take a sip, taste the history, and realize this is what winning the American dream looks like. Carbonated, caffeinated, and signed in perfect cursive. Soon, American soldiers, diplomats, and tourists are demanding Coke everywhere they go. The world never stands a chance. You sip a bottle on a Parisian street and wonder when the baguette will start fizzing. Let's set the scene. It's 1945, and the world is finally exhaling after a long, bruising world war. American GIs, newly stationed across Europe and the Pacific, are craving something that tastes like home. And it's not mom's apple pie, but an ice-cold Coca-Cola. Commanders realize the best way to boost morale isn't just letters from home or a night off, but a crate of Coke delivered behind the front lines. Soon enough, entire battalions are marching on their stomachs, and a steady stream of caramel-colored optimism. As the war ends and the world reopens, the great Coca-Cola experiment shifts into high gear. American soldiers, with pockets full of francs, lira, or yen, march into local bars and cafes demanding their favorite drink. At first, the French are suspicious. This bubbly brown concoction seems to have more in common with shoe polish than with Bordeaux. But one taste, and suddenly, everyone from Paris to Marseille wants a bottle. You stand on a Parisian street, sipping your Coke, and swear the Eiffel Tower glitters just a little brighter. The spread isn't accidental. Coke executives back in Atlanta are already dreaming bigger. The new mission: plant a bottle of Coca-Cola anywhere a flag might fly. Diplomats start handing them out at embassy receptions. Tourists stuff them in suitcases for the grand tour. The brand becomes America's first, and possibly only, universally beloved export. Forget jazz, blue jeans, or Hollywood movies. Coke is the true ambassador, showing up at street markets in Morocco, ski slopes in Switzerland, and, thanks to some impressive logistics, tucked into snowbanks at the base of Mount Fuji. Factories pop up worldwide, each churning out their own bottles to slake a growing, slightly confused international thirst. In some countries, Coke is a luxury, reserved for holidays, birthdays, or bribes for the customs officer. In others, it's the new normal, elbowing aside centuries of tea or local soft drinks. Children in Tokyo beg for the American soda, while Berliners in post-war ruins line up for a bottle as if it holds the secret to rebuilding civilization. It sort of does, at least. It gives you the energy to keep stacking bricks. Of course, not everyone is thrilled. Old-school patriots and culinary purists grumble that Coke is the first step to Americanizing the planet, and they're not entirely wrong. In Italy, a somber priest warns that Coke will ruin our youth. In Moscow, the first bottles are greeted with suspicion and a KGB agent's notebook. Meanwhile, English pubs roll their eyes but keep ordering more crates because it turns out a bottle of Coke goes perfectly with fish and chips. Especially if you're trying to look cosmopolitan, the company doubles down on its international charm offensive. New ads pop up everywhere. Coke with curry in India. Coke with schnitzel in Austria. Coke at Rio's Carnival and the Tokyo Olympics. Each bottle tells a story of a shrinking world, united by fizz, sugar, and a stubborn refusal to drink anything that doesn't come with a branded bottle opener. As decades pass, the drink's global conquest only accelerates. Politicians toast with it at summits, pop stars pose with it in magazines, and children from Nairobi to Nepal grow up seeing the Coca-Cola script alongside their own alphabets. The company claims its goal is a Coke within arm's reach of every human on Earth, and you believe it, especially when you find a bottle at a bus stop halfway up the Andes. So you finish your drink on that Parisian street, feeling more at home than a tourist has any right to. Coca-Cola isn't just an American success story anymore. It's a global ritual, a shared taste, and, if you're being honest, the one thing in your suitcase that never makes it home. Imitators swarm. Suddenly, everyone's got a cola. You taste them all and realize most of them taste like betrayal. Let's set the stage. It's the mid-20th century, and Coca-Cola stands astride the world like a caffeinated colossus. But, as every history teacher will tell you, no empire goes unchallenged forever. The unthinkable happens. Someone else decides to bottle brown, fizzy sugar water and slap their own label on it. And then another, and another. Suddenly, your once loyal taste buds are faced with an identity crisis. The biggest contender is Pepsi. Born just a few years after Coke, Pepsi starts as a medicinal tonic too, but with a little more sass and a penchant for underdog charm. While Coke pitches itself as the drink of wholesome American families and Norman Rockwell afternoons, Pepsi leans in with slogans like "twice as much for a nickel" and the choice of a new generation. It's not just a cola, it's a cola with something to prove. And prove it does. The Pepsi Challenge arrives, a marketing masterstroke so bold you can almost hear the Coca-Cola boardroom clutching their pearls. Blind taste tests sweep the nation. Ordinary people on TV declare, "I prefer Pepsi," as Coke executives nervously rearrange their neckties. Your neighbor claims he can taste the difference blindfolded. Your uncle says he can identify both by smell alone. Nobody trusts anyone anymore. Family gatherings become cola-themed Cold Wars, with refrigerator shelves divided by invisible lines of loyalty. Then there's RC Cola, the scrappy dark horse. It's the drink of people who don't care about advertising or brand loyalty. Just a cold, cheap soda at the corner store. RC leans into regional markets, never trying to be everything to everyone. It's the cola equivalent of your cousin who wears knockoff sneakers and doesn't care who knows it. Some people swear it's the best of the bunch, though they tend to whisper that confession in the same tone they'd use to admit they prefer pineapple on pizza. Of course, the imitators keep multiplying. There's Shasta Cola, Double Cola, Sam's Choice, and an endless parade of grocery store brands that taste suspiciously like a chemistry set in a can. Some are too sweet. Others are flat as a Kansas horizon. A few even make you long for the crisp, comforting sting of real Coke, if only to banish the memory of what you've just swallowed. Meanwhile, the cola wars escalate. Pepsi sponsors pop stars and splashy TV commercials. Coke fires back with polar bears, Santa Claus, and I'd like to buy the world a Coke. Billboards, radio jingles, and supermarket end caps become battlegrounds in an endless struggle for market share. Soda executives fret over taste profiles and secret formulas, while American households worry about more important things, like who gets the last can in the fridge. In a moment of pure, history-defining drama, Coca-Cola panics and launches new Coke. The taste is different, sweeter, bolder, and, to some, a violation of everything America holds dear. Public outcry ensues. "Bring back the real thing" becomes a rallying cry heard from coast to coast. Coke reverses course, sheepishly releasing Coca-Cola Classic, and balance is restored to the cola universe. By the end of the century, you realize the cola wars aren't really about flavor at all. They're about identity, nostalgia, and the pleasure of taking sides in a battle that, deep down, doesn't matter one bit, but feels like it does. You crack open a cold can, whatever brand you choose, and raise it in a toast to choice, competition, and the sweet, carbonated taste of a good old-fashioned rivalry. No more narcotics, no more wild claims, just wholesome advertisements, polar bears, and the real thing. You're not sure if you believe it, but your dentist certainly approves. Let's rewind to the mid-20th century, a time when America was ironing its pants, shining its shoes, and pretending it had never flirted with snake oil. Coca-Cola, once the mischievous brain tonic of barbershop lore and Prohibition cocktail fame, now needed a makeover, and not the dramatic kind, just enough polish to sit comfortably on a picnic table between Aunt Mildred's potato salad and a Norman Rockwell painting. Enter the golden age of branding, when Coke wasn't just reformulating its drink, it was rewriting its personality. Gone were the days of speculative elixirs and jittery testimonials. The new Coca-Cola wanted to be seen as safe, refreshing, and downright adorable. And what better way to make America forget about former ingredients than with a jolly Santa and a bear that might as well work in HR? The transition was slick. Early ad men traded words like invigorating and medicinal for refreshing and pure. The message was no longer, Coke will cure what ails you, but Coke will make your afternoon picnic just slightly better. It was subtle, calculated, and deeply effective. By the time you finished your bottle, you didn't just feel hydrated. You felt like a better citizen. The company doubled down on visuals. Suddenly, everyone in a Coca-Cola ad had perfect teeth, clean clothes, and a borderline concerning amount of enthusiasm for carbonated beverages. The polar bear campaign would arrive later, in the 1990s 90s. But even decades earlier, the foundation was there. Coke was no longer just a drink. It was an emotion, a lifestyle accessory, like a golden retriever in liquid form. By the 1950s, the advertising got even cozier. Picture a suburban living room with wood paneling and a rotary phone. Dad's reading the newspaper. Mom's smiling too hard. The kids are building a model airplane that somehow requires no supervision. And in the middle of it all, 4 glass bottles of Coke, sweating happily on the coffee table like they just ran a 5 kelvins for charity. It was marketing genius. Coca-Cola didn't just survive the shift to respectability. It defined it. No one talked about the past. No one mentioned the cocaine. It was as if the company had pulled off the cleanest image scrub in corporate history. 1 minute, your drink was being whispered about in health reform circles. The next, it was being handed out by Santa Claus and featured on the front of coloring books. This new family-friendly Coke wasn't just domesticated, it was institutionalized. Schools installed vending machines. Summer camps issued strict daily rations. Birthday parties weren't official until someone dropped a bottle cap on the linoleum floor and screamed, "Don't shake it!" Coke was everywhere. Safe, reliable, and comfortably boring. Your grandma started calling it refreshing. Your dentist started investing in a new boat. Of course, the sugar didn't go anywhere. Neither did the caffeine. But as long as the branding leaned into family picnics, patriotic parades, and the occasional Christmas miracle, the public was willing to overlook the fact that each bottle still packed the nutritional punch of a frosted cupcake doing jumping jacks. And that's the real trick of the family-friendly era. Coca-Cola didn't change who it was, it changed how it was seen. It took a product once wrapped in mystery and controversy and wrapped it in nostalgia, seasonal cheer, and a wink that said, "Don't worry, we've grown up now." By the time you crack open your next bottle, the transformation feels complete. You're not drinking a legacy of rogue pharmacists and reform-era loopholes. You're drinking the real thing, whatever that means. And as the bubbles tickle your nose and the polar bears wave from the commercial break, you realize this might be the safest rebellion you've ever tasted. You crack open a cold can in 2025, look at the label, and realize that, even after 100 years, nobody's quite sure what makes Coke taste like America. But you take another sip anyway, because some mysteries are better left unsolved. Let's set the modern stage. It's the era of lab-grown meat, robot delivery, and artisanal everything. You can 3D print a house, order kombucha with probiotics, and get a detailed report on the origins of your single bean of coffee. And yet, when you reach for a can of Coca-Cola, you enter a world where secrecy reigns supreme. The label reads like a short story. Carbonated water, high fructose corn syrup, caramel color, phosphoric acid, caffeine, natural flavors. Natural flavors is a phrase so vague it could mean anything from a vanilla pod to the collective hopes and dreams of Atlanta. Over a century has passed since Coke's original formula was a legal narcotic and a credible cure for female hysteria. Today, the ingredients have changed, but the mythology is only getting stronger. Google what's really in Coke, and you'll fall down a rabbit hole deeper than the Mariana Trench. The secret formula is reportedly locked in a vault, only known to a handful of high-level executives who probably have to do a secret handshake and recite the Gettysburg Address backward just to open the safe. This secrecy, of course, only fuels the legends. Every year, someone swears they've cracked the code. Lemon oil, orange essence, cinnamon, nutmeg, coriander, neroli. Wait, what's neroli? If you don't know, don't worry. Most Coke fans are still working on pronouncing phosphoric acid. There are books, blogs, and even lawsuits over the formula, but the end result is always the same. Nobody outside the company really knows, and inside, anyone who does is sworn to secrecy more tightly than a Cold War spy. Modern urban legends have taken over where the old ones left off. Can Coke dissolve a nail overnight? Sort of, but who's leaving nails in soda? Does it still clean blood off a highway? If you believe the internet, Coke can do anything except pay your rent. Some say Coke in Mexico tastes different because it's made with real sugar instead of high fructose corn syrup. Others claim the company changes the recipe every few years just to mess with the world's collective palate. There are Facebook groups, TikTok debates, and YouTube experiments where people boil Coke on a stove until it reduces to a sticky tar, then make sweeping conclusions about the human condition. The official story from Coca-Cola is simple. The recipe is unchanged, the flavor is classic, and any difference is all in your head, and possibly your water supply. The truth is, the average American couldn't identify half the ingredients in their pantry, let alone in a Coke. But that doesn't stop the speculation. Maybe the secret ingredient is nostalgia, or the faint taste of 20th century optimism. Maybe it's just that perfect blend of bubbles and branding. Of course, in a world that's become obsessed with labels, macros, and clean eating, Coke is a kind of delicious rebellion. It's the snack that says, "Sure, I'll have my daily value of sugar in one sip, thanks." People argue about its health effects and the politics of big soda, but when summer hits and you're sweating through your shirt at a barbecue, nothing tastes better than an ice-cold can. It's a ritual, a comfort, and, for many, a guilty pleasure that no ingredient list can ruin. So you take another sip, eyes wandering over the mysterious words on the can, and shrug. Some flavors, like the feeling of a Saturday afternoon or the memory of your first ball game, are meant to be mysterious. And as long as there's Coke in the fridge, you're happy to let the secret stay exactly that. Unsolved, unforgettable, and unmistakably American. You're standing in the back room of a 19th century pharmacy, surrounded by glass beakers, a suspicious amount of sugar sacks, and a bored teenager grinding coca leaves like it's just another Thursday. This isn't chemistry class, this is the birthplace of soda science, where the line between medicine and maybe don't drink that is blurry at best. Let's paint the picture. It's 1886, and the concept of science in the American South is equal parts experimentation and creative panic. The pharmacist, part healer and part hobbyist mad scientist, presides over his domain like a wizard in suspenders. There's an entire wall of mysterious bottles with labels like Essence of Wormwood, Mrs. Partridge's Invigorating Elixir, and Please Don't Ask. The place smells faintly of licorice, ammonia, and ambition. You've come in for a headache remedy, but you're quickly swept into a world where today's medicine is tomorrow's cautionary tale. Every shelf is stacked with possibilities and probable lawsuits. In one corner, an apprentice is boiling up a batch of digestive cordial, which may cure indigestion or dissolve your spoon. In another, a jar of beef extract lurks menacingly near the cough syrup. This is the original R&D lab. Equal parts hope, hubris, and utter disregard for what the human liver can actually tolerate. The soda fountain is the shining jewel of the pharmacy, literally bubbling with anticipation. Carbonated water, a marvel of 19th century engineering, is the hottest ticket in town. Early pharmacists, always looking for ways to keep customers coming back, realize that medicine goes down easier if it fizzes and tastes vaguely like dessert. So they start adding everything from fruit syrups to, yes, Coca and Cola nuts. Soon, there are more tonics than customers, and every concoction is advertised as the cure for fatigue, headaches, or the uniquely Victorian malaise of being too interesting at parties. You watch as the pharmacist measures, pours, and stirs with a precision that would impress a Swiss watchmaker, if the Swiss watchmaker was also part-time snake oil dealer. Sugar is shoveled in by the handful. A little for taste, a little for preservation, a little because life is short, he winks. The recipe is part family secret, part urban legend, and entirely open to improvement depending on what arrives in the morning shipment from New Orleans. There are no FDA guidelines, just a general consensus that if nobody passes out in the first hour, you're good to go. Coca-Cola is born in this wild laboratory, intended as a brain tonic for the nervous and a health drink for the weary. Nobody bats an eye when the label lists coca leaf extract as an ingredient. Why would they? At the time, cocaine is less a cause for concern than a conversation starter at dinner parties. In this laboratory, soda science takes its first exuberant steps. Medicine and refreshment are interchangeable, and nobody can decide if they're in it for the health benefits or the sugar rush. Beakers clink, mortars grind, and everyone's optimism fizzes over. A single sip could make you feel better, worse, or simply different enough to forget your original complaint. It's not just about healing, it's about invention. These pharmacists pioneer beverage chemistry, not out of malice, but from a restless need to tinker. Each failed batch is just a step toward the next miracle cure. The town's children, meanwhile, provide invaluable and largely unpaid feedback, sprinting laps around the block after sampling the latest energy syrup. You step out of the pharmacy, prescription in hand and taste buds tingling, grateful for the spirit of invention, even if your head is still throbbing and your pulse is tapping out a ragtime beat. This was the birthplace of soda science. A world where the rules were few, the dreams were big, and the biggest risk was never trying something new or maybe just the sugar crash that came later. It's 1925. You want a Coke, but where you're allowed to drink it depends on which side of town you're on. As Coca-Cola becomes a national icon, it's also tangled up in the ugly realities of segregation. Even a simple soda can't escape the nonsense of American history. You sip your drink, stare at the whites-only sign, and wonder why every sweet treat comes with a bitter aftertaste. Let's set the scene. The Roaring Twenties, all jazz, Model Ts, and the glimmer of prosperity, at least, if you're white. Atlanta hums with possibility and contradiction. Downtown, the Coca-Cola headquarters stands tall, its logo gleaming above the city like a promise. Inside the soda fountains and corner stores, Coca-Cola is the drink that everyone wants. But, as with so much else in the South, who gets to enjoy it, and where, is strictly policed by lines that are both painted on sidewalks and woven into the law. Walk into a typical Southern soda shop, and you're met by a dazzling array of marble counters, spinning stools, and bright glass bottles. But the experience is anything but universal. For black customers, the choice is often this: order at a back window, stand outside, or, more likely, find a black-owned establishment on the other side of town. Even there, the quality and supply of Coke is rarely the same. Distribution is uneven, and so is the treatment. The Coca-Cola company itself, busy conquering the world, turns a blind eye, at best. At worst, some bottlers openly pander to the segregationist mood, reluctant to advertise to black communities for fear of damaging the brand. It's a strange double life. In magazines and billboards, Coke is for everyone. Smiling, wholesome families of indeterminate race, the drink of all America. In practice, all comes with a silent asterisk. White soda fountains overflow with laughter and fizzy bottles, while their black counterparts operate in the shadow of exclusion. In some towns, it's not just about where you can drink, it's also about how much you pay. Segregation often means higher prices, fewer choices, and second-hand supplies for black patrons, who nonetheless make Coke their own, transforming it into a symbol of resilience and even quiet rebellion. There's more. In the Jim Crow South, even the myth of cocaine cola is weaponized by white supremacist newspapers. Sensational headlines stoke fears that black men drinking Coca-Cola will become dangerous, an absurd, racist panic that feeds into calls for stricter drug laws and harsher policing. The real story, of course, is that black Americans are just as eager as anyone for a cold, sweet drink on a hot Georgia afternoon. But they're forced to navigate a gauntlet of laws, customs, and prejudice to get it. And yet, the story doesn't end there. Despite all obstacles, black entrepreneurs open their own cafes, juke joints, and corner stores, places where Coke is poured with pride, where jazz plays and friends gather. These spaces become safe harbors, outposts of culture and connection in a segregated world. For generations, Coke is served at church socials, family reunions, and civil rights meetings, each bottle a small act of ownership and joy. The contradictions remain. Coca-Cola, the so-called great unifier, is both everywhere and not quite for everyone. It's a brand that dances between inclusion in its ads and exclusion at its counters. The company eventually catches up, very slowly, joining the tide of history as the civil rights movement reshapes the nation. Decades later, you'll see Coke sponsoring unity campaigns and celebrating diversity, trying to rewrite its past with a sugar-coated pen. But for now, in 1925, you can't help but notice that behind every cold drink is a story of who gets to drink it and who's left outside looking in. Even the sweetest things in America, it turns out, come with a bitter aftertaste. It's Wednesday night in the church basement. The air smells like potluck and passive aggression. You're here to help sell bottles of Coke for the new church roof. But Sister Agnes is still convinced it's a gateway beverage to jazz and loose morals. You realize Coca-Cola isn't just a drink. It's the secret fuel of small-town fundraising and at least 2 major bake sale feuds. Let's set the scene. Fluorescent lights flicker above rows of folding tables, each groaning under the weight of casseroles, congealed salads, and pies as numerous as the 10 Commandments. It's a typical church social, equal parts fellowship and covert competition. Somewhere between the jello mold and the crock pot of mystery meat, you see the centerpiece, a pyramid of glistening Coca-Cola bottles, cold and sweating, arranged with the precision of the Ark of the Covenant, only more sacred to the local teens. The adults eye the Coke warily. On the one hand, it brings in more quarters than the annual pancake breakfast. On the other, everyone remembers the year the youth group ran out of soda mid-dance and nearly staged a coup. Sister Agnes, self-appointed guardian of morality, claims Coke is fine in moderation, though she's been known to sip from a thermos she swears is just coffee. The minister makes a pointed joke about buzzing with the Holy Spirit. But even he knows that without soda sales, the church wouldn't have heat in winter or air conditioning in August. Coke's real superpower is its ability to open wallets. Nothing inspires small-town generosity like the sight of Sister Ethel's famous pecan pie auctioned off with a six-pack of Coke. The local Boy Scouts carry cases from table to table, trading bottles for raffle tickets and gossip. Kids sneak extras behind the coat rack, fueled by rumors that more than two in an evening might lead to a sugar spell, a state of being that guarantees they won't sleep until Christmas. Of course, where there's fundraising, there's rivalry. The ladies' auxiliary divides neatly into Team Coke and Team Pepsi, with occasional breakaway factions for Sprite people and root beer irregulars. Secret ballots have been cast over which beverage pairs best with lemon squares. There are whispered stories of bake sale sabotage. Sister Louise's brownies accidentally moved next to the off-brand cola, or the punch bowl mysteriously running dry just as the bingo game heats up. Forgiveness is a virtue, but grudges over soft drinks last longer than the pay cell. Church directory. For all the squabbling, the church roof fund grows steadily, powered by Coke and the iron-willed determination of women who know how to balance a checkbook and a casserole in the same hand. Every bottle sold is a small miracle. Each cap popped the sound of another hymn book purchased, or a Sunday school classroom painted. The fellowship hall becomes a temple of fizz, laughter, and sly remarks about whose potato salad is an acquired taste. The kids, naturally, have their own priorities. Coke is the currency of the playground and the after-church youth group. Trading a bottle for a front-row pew during the Easter play, sneaking an extra during choir practice, or smuggling a half-empty bottle into the church van on the way to camp, these are the rites of passage, the backbone of small-town rebellion. By the time the night winds down and the folding chairs are stacked, you realize that Coca-Cola is more than a drink. It's the silent partner in every bake sale, raffle, and potluck. It funds the mission trips, repairs the church van, and, on more than one occasion, smooths over the latest tiff between Sister Agnes and the youth choir director. In a world of solemn sermons and whispered secrets, the gospel of soda is simple. When in doubt, bring a bottle, open a wallet, and remember that nothing builds community like a shared laugh and a little fizz. Amen. You're a traveling salesman in the 1910s, schlepping cases of Coke on a horse-drawn wagon down dusty backroads, pitching fizz to every corner store and general emporium from Maine to Mississippi. Suddenly, you're the most popular person in town, and the local well water has never looked more suspicious by comparison. Let's set the scene. The engine of American expansion is still mostly horses, shoes, and grit. The roads are little more than bumpy dirt ribbons snaking through endless fields of corn, cotton, and questionable hygiene. Every mile brings a new small town, and every small town has the same nervous anticipation. Who's going to bring the next big thing? For a few magical decades, the answer is you and a wagon full of Coca-Cola. The countryside is thirsty. The local well delivers water flavored with a generous dash of earthy minerals. Translation: mud, twigs, and probably a family of newts. The rain barrels attract more mosquitoes than Baptist sermons attract gossip. Into this world of flavorless hydration rides the miracle of modern bottling, a cold, sweet, fizzy drink delivered in a glass bottle embossed with the promise of refreshment and the suggestion of civilization. As you pull into each town square, heads turn. Kids abandon their marbles and leap over fence posts. Shopkeepers pause in their sweeping, their eyes fixed on your precious cargo. Word spreads like wildfire. The Coca-Cola man is here. The local doctor, previously king of the tonic bottle, suddenly feels competition in the air. You unload your cases with the theatrical flair of a magician revealing the world's most popular rabbit. The bottle itself is half the show. Up until now, country stores have relied on whatever containers happen to be around. Pickle jars, reused whiskey bottles, even old canning crocks. But this is a contour bottle, shimmering in the sun, promising not just a drink, but a taste of the wider world. Every bottle is a tiny ticket to Atlanta, New York, or even Paris, places most of your customers have only seen on postcards, if at all. Business booms. General stores become unofficial Coke outposts. Schoolchildren pool nickels for an after-class treat, teachers use bottles as classroom rewards, and farmers sneak sips between hoeing and hay baling. A Coke delivery becomes the social event of the week. The postmaster lines up for his share. The barber orders a case for the shop. And the church ladies, after a careful theological debate, decide that Coca-Cola is officially acceptable for the next potluck. The logistics are a marvel all their own. Ice is a luxury, so bottles arrive cool at best and occasionally tepid, but nobody complains. Some towns get creative, sinking bottles in the local creek or packing them in sawdust. It doesn't matter. The taste is what matters, and Coke's blend of sugar, caffeine, and whatever's in natural flavors is enough to send even the most skeptical old-timer back for seconds. Along the way, you become more than just a delivery man. You're part therapist, part news carrier, part ambassador of all things modern. Townsfolk share their secrets over a Coke on the porch, swap gossip, and argue over which cousin is most likely to move to the city and become president. You trade stories with other traveling salesmen. Each of you convinced your product is the one that will change America for good. As the miles add up, so do the smiles, and the empty bottles left in your wake. By the time you head home, you've not only conquered the countryside, you've helped transform Coca-Cola from a city sensation into a rural ritual, a staple as essential as bread, and far more exciting than well water. The great bottling expansion isn't just about drink. It's about connection, ritual, and the joy of finding something new to share, even if it comes in a bottle, on a wagon, down a long and dusty road. So here we are, drifting back to the present, bellies full of imaginary fizz, heads spinning with the knowledge that America once swapped its whiskey for a bubbly tonic with a secret kick. Tonight, you survived the world's driest speakeasies, the sugar-fueled fever dreams of Prohibition, and an era where doctors prescribed cocaine and called it self-care. That's no small feat. It's worth pausing for a second to appreciate just how ridiculous and resourceful people can be. When the government banned booze, your average American didn't just sulk. They found new ways to get a buzz, make a buck, and outwit the system, one soda fountain at a time. Because that's what humans do. We adapt, we hustle, and sometimes we accidentally invent the most recognizable beverage on the planet. Even if it means our great-grandparents spent their afternoons arguing over the correct way to pronounce pharmacist while their nerves hummed at a pleasant 200 beats per minute. As you settle in tonight, tucked into your clean sheets, blessed with running water and a suspiciously quiet refrigerator, take a moment to appreciate just how good you have it. No bathtub gin, no patent medicine roulette, no bootleggers delivering mysterious liquids to your door, unless you count the pizza guy, but he usually sticks to soda. Be grateful your dentist's biggest worry is cavities, not cocaine withdrawal. History is always stranger than fiction. And if nothing else, the story of Coca-Cola reminds us that people are stubborn, clever, and just a little bit ridiculous, whether they're evading prohibition or arguing over what goes best with a bowl of pottage. So, the next time you sip something sweet and cold, maybe whisper a quiet thank you to the wild inventors, determined salesmen, and accidental chemists who made the world just a little bit bubblier. And now, as the last bubbles fade and the world grows still, let yourself drift off, softly, calmly, and with no worries about what's hiding in your glass. Good night, and may your dreams be fizzy, your history lessons gentle, and your sleep completely, blissfully undisturbed.